All right, guys, so this is about Surfrider. This is about the beach. It's about the ocean. This is what's happening today on Casey Studios Pacific Northwest Surfing Channel. Today we have something very special to talk about. And let's put our focus on a very special place in Salem, Oregon.
And Senator Roblin from our Central Coast districts to come up and say a few words on behalf of their constituents.
Well, I heard some of you good people came out to talk about oil drilling today. Is that right?
Yeah!
Is that right?
Yeah!
Oil drilling off the coast of Oregon. I mean, just the words alone should be enough to make you shudder. Just the thought that we can be putting in these drilling platforms up and down our magnificent coastline should take your breath away. And yet what we've got plans to expand offshore drilling in the Atlantic, in the Pacific, in the Gulf of Mexico, the Arctic Ocean, and of course also off the coast here in Oregon. And that's a dramatic reversal that'll leave over 90% of the outer continental shelf vulnerable to new drilling, and it puts our coastal communities, our beaches, our surf breaks, and our marine ecosystems at risk of a catastrophic oil spill. No. I'm David Gomberg from Lincoln City. You can be very, very sure that I'm concerned about this. I know you are as well. And people come to our beaches every day, and they come to watch whales. They come to fly kites. They come to go crabbing. I can tell you with great certainty, they do not come to look at drilling platforms and oil barges and pipelines. No! And there's not a lot of oil out there, but if somebody starts looking for it, they're going to be devastating our fishing industry. They're going to be devastating our tourism industry. And they're even going to be devastating our retirement industry, because I promise you that people that move to the coast come to watch the sunset over the waves, not the lights glinting off a drilling platform just offshore. But what we know is that spills are an inherent part of the oil exploration process, an inherent part of it. And how do we know that? Well, in just last year, 500,000 gallons. In the Delta House spill, 500,000 gallons. 200,000 gallons in the Keystone Pipeline leak. You know, there were 200 million gallons lost in the Deepwater Horizon, and 10 million gallons in Exxon Valdez. 10 million gallons. In the time since the Exxon Valdez dumped all of that oil into Prince William Sound, 24 distinct oil spills. 24 of them. And we all know that at some point in the future, hopefully not the near future, but at some point in the future, the Cascade Subduction Zone is going to slip. And we're going to have enough to worry about without also having to worry about how to plug up seeping oil up and down our magnificent coastline. So let's make it very, very clear that our message is not here, not in Oregon, not now, not ever. In the coming weeks, there are going to be decisions made in this building. They're going to affect the future of Oregon, but nothing that's going to be decided here is going to be as consequential to our future, our kids' future, our grandkids' future, as this important decision that's being made right now. And as you know, in downtown Salem, they're holding a hearing, the only hearing in Oregon on this important subject. And it's not really a hearing. When we have hearings inside the Capitol, we listen to people. Yeah. At this hearing, you get to submit written testimony, and then they go home and make their decision. What we need is a massive mobilization of coastal communities around Oregon and around the entire country to stop this irresponsible drilling binge. So I'm very proud to be out here today with all of you and to say no to drilling and to protect our ocean, to protect our coastline, protect our coastal communities, and to protect, most importantly, Oregon's unique natural beauty for generations to come. That's why we're here. That's what the message is that we want to make sure that everybody hears. And I'm so grateful that all of you are out here standing together with that message.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to have another senator from the coast join us here in a moment. In the meantime, why don't we get a little chant going here to help encourage our fair senator down here. Maybe, is he coming right now? I see a good senator right there. I'd like to welcome Senator Arnie Roeblen. My senator and the esteemed senator of the Central Coast.
So, I want to say thanks for all of you being here. This is really a big issue for our state, really a big issue for the coast. As many of you know, Senator Merkley was just on C-SPAN talking about this, and we appreciate his efforts at the federal level. We have a bill this year, and we anticipate that we will renew our efforts to make sure in our territorial sea there is no drilling. And I think we have a big commitment from everybody that that's not going to happen. But we need more than that. We need the federal government to join in and recognize that the people of Oregon feel very, very strongly about their beaches, the economy that is the coast that has to do with transportation and everything. Oh, they can't hear it. We know that the people who live on the coast want our fishermen to be out there fishing for generations to come, and they've done more sustainable fisheries in this state than any other place in the world because they do care about it. And we want to make sure that that continues. And so what we're here today to do is to make sure that people understand that those of us who live on the coast and those of us that live in Oregon really believe that this is a national treasure, not just for us, but for everybody, and to keep it the pristine 262 or 62 mile coast. We've had a conversation about that today. It's an amazing place, and I have the distinct opportunity to represent that part from just south of Coos Bay at the Charleston Bridge up to the whole west side of Tillamook Bay. I get to drive that on a regular basis. I get to look out and watch when I'm driving early in the morning and see that crab fleet out there in the middle of the winter, which is an amazing thing to see, and see a city out there on the coast as I'm driving along. We need to protect that for all of those uses, whether it's fishing, whether it's recreation, whether it's just the opportunity to walk along the beach and not have to worry about picking your feet up from the oil spills. As a kid growing up in Port Angeles, Washington, I hope that the Washington people are doing the same thing. And when we had the Anacortes spill a long time ago when I was a kid, it was pretty amazingly bad. Sorry about that. Is that better? Okay. So the goal is to make sure that everybody understands that protecting our beaches is an exceptionally important thing for all Oregonians and for the people of this country. So I hope that as this session goes on and we commit to that 3-mile territorial sea, we also get commitments from legislators across this country to make sure that means the entire portion of the Oregon coast, including the federal jurisdictions. So thank you very much.
All right, I'd like to invite another coastal legislator up here to say a few words on behalf of her district, Representative Boone.
Charlie in a suit, that's a great sight. So thank you for all coming today. As anybody who knows me knows, I don't do rallies. I haven't done them since the 60s. But this is important to me. And yeah. And one of the first things I did when I came down here was pick up where Bill Bradbury left off. And we have it's just in a 3-mile territorial sea, but we have a ban on drilling. So that, at least they can't come that close if they tried it. But the most important thing is there's only a few days, if any, worth of oil off our shore. And so I'm not sure who would pay the kind of money for infrastructure to just get a few days of oil. And I see a sign out there, it says wind power, wave power, solar power, invest in renewable energy, and that is very important. The other thing I do a lot of, and that is emergency planning, emergency preparedness, and resilience. And one of the things that we're going to have a problem with is when that big one hits, we're going to have a grid that's down. We will not be getting transmission power to the coast. So we need it to come from the other end. And what better source is there than the ocean? And if you saw some of our king tides, you'd see how much power there is out there. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time here, but speaking so somebody else can. Sorry. But thank you for doing this, and keep it up. And be sure and comment online, I guess. I'm not sure how you do it, but there's a way to do it.
Okay, keep coming back.
Thank you, Representative Boone. If you need help with those online comments, there's a tent right over there where we're more than happy to help you with that. We'll also be setting up stations today over at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's meeting a little bit later this afternoon at the Red Lion. We're going to change up the schedule a little bit here, and I'd like to introduce another esteemed colleague and friend, previous state legislator, county commissioner now, and I kind of like to say this guy invented fishing on the Oregon coast. He can speak a bit to commercial fishing, still is a commercial fisherman, and this is an issue I'm proud to stand next to him on. So, Terry Thompson, Lincoln County.
Thank you. This morning I was over here all day yesterday at the Capitol lobbying on different issues, and I started back for Newport. And Senator Merkley's staff called me and asked for comments in Washington, D.C. I just came from upstairs and saw the comments. I know that Wyden's there too. You actually have a tremendous amount of support. I think there was over 30 congressmen testifying on this issue while you're right here. So a little of my background is I'm a commercial fisherman, and I've had 10,000 days at sea, and that's truth, time out there. And it's absolutely the truth that Oregon has one of the best biological environments in the world. We have the most productive food resources, there's more fish, there's more wide variety of species, and to take that resource and destroy it, or even potentially destroy it, for a few gallons of oil that are going to be burned to create hydrocarbons into the atmosphere is a tremendous mistake by the president. The people of Oregon have spoke over and over again. They want to protect this environment and the state we live in. And to the president to completely ignore us is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, he is ridiculous.
It's time the President of the United States became a president for all people, not just the East Coast and Texas. It's up to us as a state to fight, and this is the first step. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to recognize our federal delegation who, as Terry so eloquently mentioned there, has been busy in D.C. speaking the word of the people. And I'd like to note that today they carried messages and quotes from many Oregonians on the Senate floor. These were not just sloughed off lobbyist quotes, but these were real people. People like Terry Thompson, people like Scott McMullen, individuals that use and care about our coast as you do. When it comes to protecting Oregon's coast, we're a bipartisan state. In the same fashion that Oregonians have come together and bound together in support of public beaches, in support of a bottle bill, the first in the country, we're united in understanding the threats that offshore oil drilling poses to our way of life, our jobs, and our coastal economy. We will not gamble our ocean resources with dangerous oil exploration and polluting drilling activities and exploration that put our future and that of future generations at risk. Now I've decided to move myself up in the program a little bit here, so I'm just going to keep going for a moment. And I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the recreational community. Those for wildlife viewing, for tide pooling. We cannot imagine an Oregon coast with offshore oil drilling. As we heard from Senator Roblin, at Christmas time we see crab boats on the horizon. I'd like to continue seeing crab boats on the horizon, not oil platforms on the horizon.
Yeah!
Now, you probably heard some numbers tossed around about Oregon's ocean economy, and the National Ocean Economics Report and Program reports about $2.5 billion annually that's invested or is its market of our ocean. That's a pretty shy number for what is actually realistic for our coast. When I look at recreation alone, in 2011, the Surfrider Foundation conducted a study on non-consumptive recreation, people that just enjoy the beach, enjoy surfing, tide pooling, as I mentioned before. $2.4 billion in annual expenditures.
Yeah!
That is an economy we cannot risk with offshore oil drilling, and we will not accept that off of our coast. In a moment here, we're going to hear from our state treasurer, Tobias Reed, who's going to speak a little bit more to the economy, the important economy of the Oregon coast, and that of our future generations, and what's important to us here. We see a renewable future in Oregon. We do not see stronger dependence on fossil fuels. It's dinosaur energy, and we are not living in the dinosaur age.
Yeah!
This goes any louder. Can you all hear me when I sing? Can you hear him?
You could be louder.
Does it? Yeah. Does this go up any higher?
All right, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is going to jump in front of the state treasurer here while we're still waiting on him to show up. Terry Abteshka, been a commercial fisherman over 20 years in Newport. Previously served on the Newport City Council. A great friend, fighter for clean water, sustainable seafood, and that what puts food on his table. So I'm going to turn it over here to Terry.
Welcome, fellow Oregonians. It's a privilege to appear before you today to protest offshore drilling. I'm here because you're here, because we're here, we're all here because fish and other living things, big and small, that inhabit the Pacific Ocean do not have a voice. I'm also a tree hugger, and I'm proud of it. We need to. A tragedy of the commons. The ocean belongs to all of us, everyone in the whole planet. My name's Terry Abteshka. I live in Newport, Oregon. I'm a concerned citizen, a small business owner, an educator, and I've commercial fished for 20 years. Some of you may recognize me as I worked 22 and a half years for the Oregon DEQ. I've got 30 years work experience in public health and environmental protection. I'm representing the commercial fishing industry, a more than $500 million industry. I will repeat, $500 million bucks! Commercial fishing employs thousands of workers that make family wage incomes and pay millions of dollars in taxes to support government services. Their entrepreneurship makes America great.
Yeah.
Our fish harvests are sold locally, nationally, and worldwide. A few examples: Dungeness crab, shrimp, tuna, salmon, sablefish. So next time you sit down for a seafood dinner caught in Oregon and a glass of wine made in Oregon, this has created a lot of jobs. It creates a lot of income.
Right.
You can rest assured that the international oil companies and their public relations people will tell us they will provide us jobs and economic opportunities. They will spend millions of dollars to convince us they are our ally.
Oh, okay.
Not to worry, because new pollution prevention technologies are ironclad against oil spills. Oil spills will not occur. We know the answer to that one. They will tell us their rigs will improve fishing by providing habitat.
Oh, okay.
Not habitat.
Kermit is green, oil companies are not.
Yeah.
Another very good reason to prohibit offshore drilling is that the continental shelf off the Oregon coast is technically active. There is an unacceptable risk that extracting oil and gas will disrupt the geological equilibrium, resulting in a major earthquake and a tsunami.
That's right.
Right.
A major oil blowout of an oil rig or earthquake or tsunami caused by the gas and oil extraction people would be an ecological and economic disaster. Either would destroy our coastal communities economically and environmentally. Fishing and tourism is their blood livelihood. In closing, it's incumbent upon all of us to continue the legacy of the late Governor Tom McCall and protect the people's beautiful Oregon coast from offshore oil drilling and oil extraction. Please join me in speaking in a unified and very loud voice against the exploitation of Oregon's beautiful coast. Let's tell the oil companies and their ilk they are not welcome here.
That's right.
Thank you.
That man's passionate about the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
I think we're all passionate about the Oregon coast, as is my next speaker. I'm very pleased and honored to introduce State Treasurer Tobias Reed, who recently penned an op-ed in the Gene papers, you may have seen, about our coastal economy, about the state's economy, and what's at risk when it comes to offshore oil drilling. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the State Treasurer.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is really nice to hear in our office this conversation out here. You know, I didn't ever have very much confidence in the Trump administration's commitment to the environment, but this ridiculous plan leaves no doubt about where they stand with respect to our coast. Oil rigs would threaten our environment, they would hurt our economy, they would erode tourism, and they'd weaken our long-term competitiveness. When I'm in other parts of the country and I say I'm from Oregon, people get this look in their eyes. They look off in the distance, and I think they're getting a picture in their head of our coast. And one thing I'm confident about is that that picture does not include a coastline riddled with oil rigs. I've told the administration in that op-ed and in a letter my stance on this ridiculous plan, and I am here to say thank you for making your voices clear here and at the hearing that you're going to travel to shortly. The administration needs to hear clearly from us that we're not going to allow oil rigs to punch holes in the bottom of the ocean along the Oregon coast. It's not the Oregon way. As Oregonians, we respect and rely on the natural wonder of the coastline and of the ocean. We're going to fight to protect our ecosystem, to preserve our public beaches for future generations, and we're not going to stand by and watch the federal government put land, people, and our well-being at risk. I want to make sure that all of you understand that your voices have power. Being here, communicating with the federal government in your calls, your emails, the testimony that you're going to offer has a real influence. And crowds like this will make sure that the administration hears us. You know, we, as Oregonians, we are heirs to our ancestors who were willing to look over the frontier and head west for a better life. And the question I think we've all got to ask is what it would say about us if future generations look west and see a coastline dotted with outdated and extinct infrastructure. So let me just say thank you again and appreciate all that you're doing. Let's make sure that our kids are proud of us. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I'm going to be inviting our congressional delegates up now to speak a little bit. And again, their staff is here today to speak to us. And that's because they are on the floor. As you may have heard previously this morning or this afternoon, they were on the floor giving very, very powerful speeches, making your voices heard in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to first introduce Staffer Fritz Graham from Senator Wyden's office.
All right.
I'll be reading a letter from the Senator. Good afternoon. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this event. Simply put, I am against bad ideas, bad policy, and anything that will devastate the beauty of the Oregon coast. This offshore drilling deal hits all three. We're fortunate in Oregon to have a picturesque coastline. It's 362 miles of beautiful coast, supporting 22,000 jobs and a $2 billion economy. Tourism, fishing, recreation, all of it relies on a healthy Pacific Ocean. And I don't know anyone in Oregon who wants to gaze out at Haystack Rock to see an oil derrick out on the horizon. As you know, the Oregon coast is entirely publicly owned, and it's been protected from oil and gas drilling for decades. That's in large part because we've learned harsh lessons from the past. In 1999, the freighter New Carissa ran aground off the coast of Coos Bay. The ship split apart, spilling tens of thousands of gallons of oil and diesel that covered our beaches in oil and tar balls. Some of that toxic mess remained on beaches for almost a decade, fouling the coastline and costing tens of millions of dollars to clean up. Oregonians have a deep understanding of all this, and Oregonians do not want offshore drilling. Which is why many of us were so shocked to see Secretary Zinke go ahead and make this wrong-headed coastal drilling decision without any input from Oregon. Our commercial and recreational fisheries industry, the hardworking families that depend on healthy fish stocks who stand to lose the most, have had no seat at the table. This is not the time to expand oil or coal in this country. Our country is more energy secure now than ever, which is why I am fighting in Washington against offshore oil drilling and for renewable energy, with a set of bills that will ensure America's electric grid has a strong supply of cheap, efficient, renewable energy, and will firm up renewables by lowering the cost of energy storage. This whole thing is a bad idea and will only benefit a handful of big oil interests, leaving hardworking fishermen and coastal business owners to pick up the tab, all while ruining the beauty of the Oregon coast. This is not how we do things on the West Coast. The lasting economic uncertainty and ultimate environmental degradation is not worth oil and gas drilling. I will fight tooth and nail to urge Senator Zinke to rescind this awful and short-sighted proposal. Sincerely, Ron Wyden.
Another man that gave a very passionate speech this morning on behalf of Oregonians on the Senate floor was Senator Merkley, and I'm going to introduce now Jessica Stevens, his senior staff here in Oregon.
All right.
statement from Senator Merkley. Thank you all for coming out today. Right now, it's more important than ever to have your voices heard. Because the most anti-science, anti-public health administration in recent memory has made the need to fight against climate disruption more urgent than ever. The Trump administration's decision to expand offshore drilling in Oregon at a time when we're already dealing with devastating impacts of climate disruption is extremely reckless and short-sighted. This irresponsible move would harm our coastal economies and our ecosystems, threaten our coastlines, and we can't afford to put the state's economy at risk just to pad the profits of big oil.
That's right. All right.
Last month, Senator Wyden and I led more than 36 senators in a letter sharply criticizing the decision and urging the administration to maintain our coast protections. And I joined my Senate colleagues in representing coastal states in calling for the same respect that our states was already given to Florida, demanding that we also be immediately exempted from any new offshore oil or gas drilling.
Yeah.
With the administration signaling a dangerous willingness to put polluters in charge, it is more important now than ever to ensure that Oregon's coastline is protected. I want you to know that I'm going to continue to fight in Congress to save our environment and our health. Thank you for joining me in this critical fight for the future of our planet.
Thank you, Jessica. Our congressional delegates are busy on the House side too, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce John Serra from Representative Schrader's office to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. My name is John, and I'm going to read this letter on behalf of Congressman Schrader. Dear Oregonians, thank you to the Surfrider Foundation and all of you here today fighting to protect our coast for inviting me here to speak. I regret that my duties in Washington prevent me from being there in person to stand with you in opposition to the dangerous and unnecessary oil and gas drilling proposed along our waters. The Trump administration's effort to roll back protections for the West Coast is dangerous and upends all Oregon precedents on both sides of the aisle. Oregon hasn't had an offshore lease since the 1960s, and the West Coast hasn't had any new drilling in over 30 years, and for good reason. We don't want it. Our fisheries define us. With careful stewardship, our coastal communities have sustained themselves for generations with hard, honest work. Today, Oregon's coast is home to working waterfronts that sit along some of the most beautiful, pristine, and productive shores on Earth. People travel from all over the world to experience this, which is so uniquely Oregon. Unique because in so many places, those who are responsible for protecting their communities have failed to do so by looking the other way as their local ecosystems are destroyed and sustainable fishing is left to languish. In Oregon, fisheries and tourism bring more than $2 billion into the state every year and support over 20,000 local jobs. But our coast is more than that. It represents our heart, our tradition, and our future. We cannot allow this administration to jeopardize our communities by leasing them for offshore oil and natural gas development. And this is why I will continue to fight for legislation with both Democrats and Republicans that protects our shores along the Oregon, California, and Washington coast. Thank you all for protecting our waters and communities by standing up to this administration's disastrous offshore drilling plan. It's a privilege to serve you all in the United States Congress. Sincerely, Kurt Schrader.
All right, next we have Representative Bonamici's staff, Ali Maeda.
Hi everyone, Suzanne represents Oregon's beautiful North Coast, and she wishes she could be here with you today. She sent this letter in her place. Good afternoon, friends. I'm the co-chair of the Congressional Oceans Caucus, and I know how important it is to protect our oceans. The Trump administration's push to sell off our coast for risky oil and gas development is infuriating, and it goes against the majority of Oregonians and Americans who want to protect the ocean from this kind of dangerous exploitation. To make things worse, this decision comes soon after Trump weakened regulations that were designed to help prevent oil spills, keep workers safe, and protect the environment. History shows that where we drill, we spill. We cannot afford that risk in the Pacific Ocean, which is already facing acidification, harmful algal blooms, and other consequences of climate change. Risking the health of our oceans for the financial gain of private companies is reckless, wrong, and unnecessary. Our future will be powered by clean, renewable energy sources like wind and solar. I'll continue to advocate for investing in clean energy, and I'll always stand up to Trump's drill at all costs agenda. Your voices make a difference. Together we can tell the Trump administration, not on our watch.
Another good friend of mine, recreational fisherman, the coast of Oregon, and the fishing is extremely important. Bob Reese is going to come speak on behalf of the Association of Northwest Steelheaders, so please welcome Bob Reese.
Good afternoon, you guys. My name is Bob Reese. I'm a sixth-generation Oregonian and executive director for the Association of Northwest Steelheaders. I'm also a 22-year veteran professional fishing guide who spent the last 20 years on the Oregon coast. I had to come back from the Oregon coast because there weren't enough sturgeon to sustain my business. I've seen what devastation has happened with oil spills from around the country. Some of my fellow colleagues that still are trying to operate their business in the Gulf Coast. They spent a good part of the Deepwater Horizon spill time shuttling oil workers back and forth to clean up the mess that was made in that disaster. And the history books speak for themselves. We know the damage that offshore oil and gas drilling can contribute to our coastal economies. You've heard from some of our policymakers about the value, $2.5 billion a year in annual expenditures on the Oregon for the Oregon sportsmen. $338 million a year are left on the coastal communities from when our visitors go there. It's just something we cannot sacrifice. It is not worth the risk. It is not worth our energy. We have everything we need. Let's say no to oil drilling on the Oregon coast. Hell no! The Association of Northwest Steelheaders is the Oregon affiliate for the National Wildlife Federation. We work with numerous other affiliates from across the nation on different conservation issues. How lucky are we to have people like Governor Brown, to have people like Senators Wyden and Merkley, to have our congressfolk like Representative Schrader and Representative Bonamici, our state senators and representatives here in the Capitol building come out collectively and say, we will not have drilling off of the Oregon coast. The leadership in other states that we work with on the affiliates, they don't have that kind of leadership. It's just an incredible gift to have what we have here in Oregon, not just the natural resources, but with the political folks that we work with. As an Oregonian, as a sixth-generation Oregonians, we live here because of our natural resources and the bounty that they provide for rural and urban communities. This proposal goes against everything we believe in as Oregonians. Drilling for oil compromises our fisheries, it compromises our coastal economies, And probably most of all, it compromises the values we embrace as Oregonians. As you heard from Representative Gomberg, 210 million gallons of oil spilled in a Deepwater Horizon accident. This bill was visible from space, you guys. And as I mentioned, the effects of this bill is still impacting those that relied on the coastal economies to make their living. We will not put up with it here in Oregon. I want to thank everybody for being part of this rally. As you've heard before, your voice really counts in this conversation. Please do take the time to comment on this publicly. We will not stand for this as Oregonians. We will not stand for this as conservationists. And we will not stand for this as people who depend on healthy natural resources to make our living and enjoy our life. Thank you so much. And I want to just take a minute to introduce the next speakers. Elk and Alicia Littleleaf are good friends from the Warm Springs tribe. They're a husband and wife fly fishing guides, experts on landing salmon and steelhead and rainbow trout on the Deschutes River. They came all the way over from the Warm Springs tribe. These are the Littleleaf guides. They know what they're doing. They have a true passion and love for the earth, Mother Earth, and all that it provides to their community as well as ours. Let's welcome the Littleleafs, please.
My name is Alicia Littleleaf. This is my husband Elkie. We are Warm Springs and Wasco descendants from the Warm Springs tribe, and we are originally from the mouth of the Columbia, the Astoria and the Chinookan area. That's where our people descend from. So that's why we are here. We are here to speak on the behalf of our natural resources. That is the salmon, the steelhead, the lamprey, eel. I can go on. The huckleberries, the roots, there's so many natural resources that are involved, and it would be a domino effect if there was to be any drilling and oil effect. We already know there's too many risks involved, and we're here to speak on behalf of those natural resources that can't speak for themselves. And we're also here to keep the movement alive. Water is life, because without water there is no life, and that water has to be kept clean and pure and cool. And as Bob said, that we are from the Columbia River, but we're also from the Deschutes. That's where we reside now. That's where our livelihood is. So we still depend on these natural resources. It is our livelihood. We fish for these salmon, these trout, this steelhead, and it provides for our family, and it's supposed to be for future generations to come, not just for the next generation or the next after that. It's supposed to be for 7 times that and more. And I'll let my husband speak, but this is for all of us, for not just the indigenous, but for all of us, and we have to continue to work with our allies and to continue to amplify our voice, and to continue to keep getting right done and do right by our natural resources, our Mother Earth, our Nichi Wanapum, that is the Columbia River. We're Columbia River people. Water is life.
Water is life!
Hello, thank you everyone for coming out here, supporting us on this. I'm upset for coming out here. I'm upset that I have to keep standing up, fighting for our resources and speaking up. I'm upset for seeing all these foreign companies that are coming here, taking advantage of our resources for profit. And these people that are trying to take over our resources, that are trying to drill in our coastlines and for profit, do not realize the endangerments that are happening to our society, that's happening to our natural wildlife, our orcas, our killer whales, our sea lions that are coming up the river. All these are man-made problems, and they're here for a reason. And these people can't see that, so we have to step up as citizens of Oregon, as natives. We all have to unite and step up to these people and let them know that we want to keep our coastlines clean and pure as it should be, because we are natives. our 1855 treaty. You know, that's our agreement to keep all of our land sacred as it should be, because if anything out on that ocean coast destroys any of those rivers that are coming in, that's going to affect our way of life, and we've been dependent on that for thousands of years. And I'm upset for this happening. That's this happening. We need to end this now. Step together. No oil on our coast.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I just have to state that we do this as a fishing guide service, but as tribal members, as concerned tribal members, we've opposed no coal, we've opposed no Nestle, we opposed no oil, we opposed no oil transferred by railway. There's so many things that you could be involved. You can get online and you can look up all these different hashtags, hashtag no Nestle, no coal, no oil. And you can find out what those all mean by just simply clicking on those hashtags. Those are keywords that are very important that we use on social media on a daily basis. We're almost crying and trying to open eyes all the time and trying to get more people to come and join our battle with us. So right now I'd like to take this time and introduce our tribal council lady. Her name is Purnima Miller, and she has been involved with us, and she has went down to Standing Rock with us in our canoe family, and has been involved against no Nestle and this success.
All right. Nich Patrai Milauti Ku in Minaimuma Nashwaniksha Karina Miller. I'm very thankful to be here today. I'm very thankful you are all here today, that we're all here together standing against this. All right. For the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs and the Native people of Middle Oregon, since time immemorial, all that was needed to survive was provided by nature. Roots and berries came from the earth, which also sustained deer, elk, and other wildlife, and the water has provided salmon and eels. Waikunush is the Ichishkeen word for salmon. For tribal people in Oregon, salmon is, and always has been, a central part of our lives and our culture. As a tribal leader, part of my responsibility is to speak for the things that cannot speak for themselves, to think ahead 7 generations and make decisions that will impact their success or their struggles. Our salmon spend at least a year in the ocean before returning to their home rivers and streams to spawn. They survive predators, ocean conditions, and commercial harvests, and may swim hundreds of or even thousands of miles to get back to the stream where they hatched. But only a small percentage of the salmon make it home. Endangering this cycle of life further by allowing oil and gas drilling and transport which threatened ocean habitat cannot be allowed. It is not only the life of the salmon at risk, but loss of first foods that sustained our ancestors and that connects us to them now. In addition to our historic and spiritual relationships with these fish and its obvious negative impact on marine life, offshore drilling for oil and gas will have negative impact on coastal commerce, tourism, recreation, fishing, navigation, marine transport, public access, and abundant marine life. Oil and gas lease sales off the Pacific coast, drilling and transportation of oil and gas are not in the best interest of our economies, our environment, or our people. I want to say thank you to all the elected officials who have taken a strong stance against this, who are here today making statements against this, who are in DC making statements against this, tribal elected officials across the country making statements against things like this. Now, I'm really thankful for these rallies. I'm really thankful for these issues that are finally bringing communities together that haven't traditionally been allies. Tribes have had a hard time with colonization. So I want to take the opportunity, just a couple minutes if I can. I've tried this before and it didn't really work out, but maybe this is the crowd. I'm going to say something and I'd like you guys to chant it. Let's practice. It's Ichishkeen. It's Chush Iwa Wakishwit. That means water is life. Yes. Chush Iwa Wakishwit. Let's chant it 5 times. You ready? So they can hear. You ready? Chush Iwa Wakishwit. Chush Iwa Wakishwit. Do you want them to hear us?
Chush Iwa Wakishwit.
Louder.
Chush Iwa Wakishwit.
Last time.
Chush Iwa Wakishwit.
One more time, because I need to know that you're going to be here to stand with me. One more time. Ready?
Chush Iwa
Water is life. Tesla, thank you for having me.
I'm actively texting with the governor's office as we speak. I think we need to chant louder. We got 3 minutes here to give the governor's office a chance to show up, so why don't we try another one? We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. We will not spoil the Oregon coast with oil. All right, I have Richie Severe who's going to come up now and say a few words on behalf of the governor's office.
Hi everyone, my name is Richie Severe. I'm Governor Kate Brown's Energy and Climate Change Policy Advisor. I'm really happy to see so many people gathered here today to speak out in what is a really difficult decision that the federal government has made for us. The decision to put out a proposed drilling plan off of the coast of Oregon is something we've never seen, and there's a reason for that. The governor has spoken a lot about the beauty and bounty of Oregon's coast and how much our coastal communities rely on the economic drivers around tourism and seafood as part of their way of life there. And I think that the economic risk that this proposal puts in place is something that's really disturbed her. I have here a letter that I'm planning on delivering to the BOEM public meeting later today, since they're not taking oral testimony, unfortunately. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of what it says. It basically goes through her concerns with the numerous seafood and tourism-related economic drivers in the coastal communities that we have here. There were over $2 billion and 22,000 jobs in tourism and recreation on the coast in 2017 alone. There have been 5 marine reserves established in Oregon, and Oregonians overwhelmingly want to make sure that they continue to be preserved and conserved. So one of the things that we've done here in Oregon is taken a look at the first 3 miles that we have jurisdiction over and developed an Oregon Territorial Sea Plan. That sea plan does not allow any oil and gas drilling. There was a public process to establish it. It really does protect ocean health and fisheries while responsibly planning for the potential for Oregon's renewable energy sector, which is the future that we see here in terms of clean energy. In addition, we have the beach bill, a historic bill, that really takes the public use of the beach as a commodity that we all have access to. And these are policies that are really indicative of Oregon's values and how those values really do not include offshore drilling. Hell no. Yeah. One of the things that the governor talked to Secretary Zinke about a couple weeks ago was how Oregonians, if given the chance, would be able to tell him directly how bad this would be for Oregon. He's taken a lot of time meeting with other governors, in particular in Florida, to take Florida off the list. And I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that the federal government hears why we want to protect the ocean and why we don't want offshore drilling here. So thank you for being here and having your voices heard on behalf of the governor. I really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you, Rishi. So, I want to remind folks that the reason that we are here today is to send a message to BOEM. And that happens with your presence here. That happens with you being outspoken. standing up, bringing your signs, bringing your friends, taking your time off of work. I want to thank you guys all for being united to protect the Oregon coast today. I'm very proud to be an Oregonian today and to see such a diverse group of interests come together over this issue. We are one and we are better together, and I think that this group really demonstrates that. A reminder to you, though, that our message is not complete until we file comments with BOEM. That's the Bureau of Ocean Energy and Management. They've not made it easy for us to give comments. You're not going to be able to go over to this meeting here in a few minutes and give public testimony. It's going to feel more like a high school science fair than it is going to feel like an opportunity for you to give comments. So I challenge you all to spend some time researching on the Department of Interior's website. You can go to surfrider.org's website. We've made this very easy. We'll be hosting meetings between now and March 9th. Look up your Surfrider chapters, look up your local activist chapter. I encourage you guys to have house parties, to do comments. It matters. Every comment matters. We want individual comments. We want to hear from you. We need your voices to the federal government. It's not enough for us just to have strong delegation in Salem and strong delegation in DC. They're there because you're here. And you remember that, and I hope you take this home, and I hope to see you over here at the Red Lion in a few minutes. If you need help finding out information how to get there, you can stop by the...
We came from Portland to Salem because we're very opposed to offshore drilling on any ocean. We're opposed to the extraction of oil. We're opposed to anything that's hurting creatures on our planet, and we need to keep it in the ground no matter where it is.
Well, we're here to defend our coast from offshore oil and gas drilling. I just can't believe that the Trump administration would propose lease sales off of our coast. Our ocean is so precious, so valuable. There's so much wildlife. It's important to our fisheries and to our culture. And an offshore oil spill would put all of that at risk. So I'm here to help make sure that doesn't happen and help protect our coast.
This is Oswald West. A famous beach in Portland is named after him. And he was a preeminent conservationist, and he helped get the 363 miles of Oregon beach available and to be public land forever. Yeah, this is Oswald West. If you've ever been to Oswald West State Park or Smuggler's Cove, it's named after him.
Killer, man.
Yeah, and there's great surfing there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
My name's Kate Miller, and I'm an Oregon lover of life. I love our state with its deserts, its ocean, and its mountains. And we've had protections. We've been the leaders in the country for many years of taking care of our beaches. We were the first state to make all our beaches public property. So I'm out here because I care, and that the oil drilling or exploration for any other fossil fuels just doesn't have any place in our future. The fisheries, the habitat, and the tourism, which is often cultural tourism or just people recreating, is so much more of an impact economically that it's kind of a no-brainer. So many people should express their concern, as well as depending on our legislators.
Okay, so the rally's over. Man, it was cool. There's a lot of people, a lot of energy, and I had no idea what to expect. There was all these political people there. I don't really know exactly all the details of what was supposed to be happening, but great rally. So I'll leave a link to Surfrider's page in the description if you want to get more involved with the fight against offshore drilling. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.
Yes, I do, and I know what's mine. Yes, I do. It's one thing to start it, and another to see it through.
You're watching Casey Studios, Pacific Northwest Surfing Channel. Keep those oceans clean.